and then so we were working on the chat application. So here I will see all the users. Here I will see the chat with the user A, and here will be the send message. And as soon as the message will go, I will see the details here on the white screen below it. All the messages I will see here. So let's try to build this one. So I will go to the chat.js. So this is the screen. Okay. So now I will add the I will add this Firebase thing into my chat application.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry, late.
Yeah, no problem. So this is my chat. I added this Firebase chat application. And now we will try to build this. So first thing is what I need is I need the user with whom I'm chatting. So I want to show I'm chatting with user A or user B. So I will open another browser to, to chat with that user. If I go to okay, 1 second, let me open. So if you see, I cannot click the user and I cannot click the drop down. The reason is that I removed the bootstrap part inside my index.html. So right now I will reinsert that bootstrap.js, and later on I will remove it when I integrate it with React Bootstrap. So here I need to input the bootstrap again, bootstrap.min.js. Otherwise my dropdown is not working. Okay, bootstrap.min.js. Now if I refresh, my dropdown is working. Now let me okay. So I will reduce the size of this one. Okay, so now so this is my another user. This name is Ambi, and this user is this one. So first thing is I want to make with the user, particular user. So I need to pass something ID here with whom I am going to chat. So I will go to the Firebase and try to get the ID of this user. I may do the changes in the database frequently. So with the start, right now I will make one database structure, and later on, if I need some more things, I will be trying to add more things. So let's see what is the user is this one and UID is this one. So let's take this UID, and I am chatting with this UID. So I'll pass this UID in the URL. and I'll press enter. So first thing, when I come to this page with this user ID, so I'm saying chatting with user. I want that user, which is this user, the one with which comes in the URL. So I need to get the details of this user who is in the URL. So what I will do, let's go in the chat. I will create one constructor with the props, and then I will say super props, and here I will do console.log of this.props. Let's see what is coming in the props. So let's refresh it again. So this dot props is coming like this, and here I have match params to user ID. So that means if I say this dot props dot match dot params dot to user ID, if I put this one, then I get this user ID which is coming in the URL. Okay. So let's say if I don't have this one, let's see what is coming. Undefined. So that means it's fine. I can say var user ID is equal to, I will say to user ID is equal to this dot match dot params. And if it does not exist, for example, if it is there, I will say take this, otherwise take empty string or take null. This is the to user ID. I also want to know the from user ID. Since we will be using Redux also, so let's put the Redux part also. So I will put the connect part first. Then I will take this one and I will put this one. Now let's see what is coming in the props. I will again do console.log of props. So when I do console.log of props, I will get my reducer, and inside my reducer, I am not getting anything. The reason is it takes some time to get the data from the Redux kind of thing, and it is not available in the constructor. Okay, let's try to check this in the component did mount. Let's try to check this in the component did mount. Console.log. I will say I am in component did mount, and I'll delete it from here. This one is available here because it is coming from the URL, so we are able to get it here. But this one is not coming, the one which I want for the login. Let's refresh for the login and see in the component did mount. If I go to my reducer, still it's not there. So we don't get the details of the user who is logged in when I am on this page, even if I am in the component did mount or even I am in the constructor. So we don't get the user ID, right? So we need to figure out how we can do this one. So I don't have the user ID. So one thing I can do is Let's go to my action. Whenever I logged in, I get the details of the user. Whenever I logged in, I get the details of the user. I can I can save these details in the local storage. So for example, I can say local storage dot get item, local storage dot set item, and here I will say user object, and I will pass the JSON dot stringify, and I'll pass the params. Whatever the params is coming, and whenever the user we call the logged in, we also save it in the local storage. And when user logged out, we will remove that item. We will delete that one. So we'll say local storage dot remove item and user object. So now we are saving the information in the local storage of the user object who is logged in. So let's see now. I refresh the page. I will see user. Okay, we have users object. Maybe this is from some other application. Let me clear it. I'll refresh it. I'll log in here. So when login, I get user object with all the information here. So I put everything in the user object now. You can copy paste after some time because I will make some part workable. Then you copy paste that thing, because right now I'm just researching. I'm just brainstorming how the things will go. So I'm not sure this is the final way which I will go with it. Right now I'm just trying to research what should be the best way. So now let's say I also don't want to get this. We are getting this local variable, but I also want to save this in the state. I want to save this in the state. So what I will do, I will create a new action here, and here I will say export constant cat to user ID equal to. So I'm trying to put this user ID in the state in here. So it's saying chat to user ID, and then what I will do, I will return something like this, and here I will say chat to user ID. I don't need a promise because I will be passing to user ID here, and I will pass this chat user ID. And similarly, I will create this part in the Redux. Redux is my reducer. I will create one more case, and it will be chat user ID get equal to dot 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 state, and I will create one more variable is here to user ID. Initially it will be null, and once I pass it, I will say to user ID is equal to action dot payload. So with whom I'm chatting, I will be putting in the state so that it's available wherever I want. And now I will call this action here, import chat to user ID from actions my action.js file. So now this chat user ID is available, which I will use it here in another function. for the props, and that function is mm, I'm not using here. Let's see search form. Yeah, match dispatch to props. I will be copying this part here, and here I don't need so many functions. I need only one function, and I will call this chat user ID here in the function. Maybe I will call this as call or call change user ID. Here I change the user ID. Here I'll pass the user ID, that is to user ID. And here in dispatch, I will call the chat to user ID, and I will say to user ID here, or UID. I will say UID, and I'll put UID here. So basically, I'm trying to change the user ID because from one user to another user. So whenever I'm chatting with this user and I am then changing to this user, I will just update this. I will this call with the new user ID. So the in the state we will get the new user ID. So I am I created this function to change the user ID, and this user ID will update the reducer variable, and that variable is called to user ID to whatever we want. But when the page loads, and if we have to user ID, so I can put this part in the component did mount. I will put this part here, and here I will create one local state variable, or wait, we will not create right now. Let's put in the component did user ID, and here I will say console.log to user ID is user ID. Now I will refresh. Something is wrong. I put this chat form. Okay, let's check this one. So to user ID is null because I'm not passing anything. If I pass something here in the URL, I'm getting to user ID, which is coming in the URL. So first thing which you will do now is create this component did mount function in the chat and create this constructor is not needed now. So let's not use constructor. Just create this component did mount in the chat. Only do this first thing. Okay, so whenever we are getting something from the URL, I'm putting it to this variable to user ID and able to see in the console.log that variable. Now create one action in the my action, create this action to update the user ID. So we will be saving this user ID in the state. So we will create a func state. We'll create action where I will be updating the user ID to user ID. Now we will create the reducer part. So in the reducer, first thing you need to add the one variable to user ID, and then you need to create one case statement. Okay, I need to put a break also. So this is the case statement which we need to add it in the reducer. Okay, now in the chat one, just try to add this uh, reducer part in the bottom. Also put this Firebase and the Redux reducer and the action in the top. Okay, now we will go further. Now as soon as we do the component did mount, we get the URL from the user ID from the URL, and so we will update this to a user ID variable which is in the action or which is in the reducer to user ID to the one which we get. So what I will do, I will call this function. So to call this function, I will see first whether this function existed or not. I will say this.props to see whether this function is there or not. Let's see that one. So if I go to, let's refresh it. And then I will see there is that one component did mount. Let's to user ID. After to user ID we have. So component. Okay, spelling is wrong. You must check if spelling is wrong or what. So now I have to user ID and I can see the call change user ID is there. So what I will do, I will call this function this.props.call change user ID, and then I will pass the new user ID. So now the variable will get updated inside the state variable that is in the reducer. Take that one now. So if I open my reducer, to user ID is updated with this user ID which is there. Let's say if I am removing this one, so to user ID will become null. So now if I open so now it's to user ID is become null because I don't pass in the URL. So if I pass something in the URL, to user ID will become this one. So just do this part now in the component did mount. So my main focus was here to save the user ID which I am chatting with. So I'm trying to put that in the state to whom I'm chatting with. And if I don't have any user, I'm putting it null. So this is how we are trying to get this user ID. Okay. Now we got the user ID with whom I am chatting with. Now my main aim is here. This can be done in various ways. This is the one way I'm doing. Maybe you can find some other way also. It's not that this is the only way we are doing. Now I want to update this, chatting with this one. So here I want the name of the user with whom I'm chatting. Here only I have the ID. Okay, we have only the ID, but I want the name of the user which I want to interact with. So I will create one more action which will get the data from the Firebase. So I will create one more action. This is only to update the user ID with whom I'm chatting. Now this one, another function I will call, another action or function I will call, which will get the detail cat to user ID details. This is the one, this is the person with whom I am chatting. I want the details of that user. And here to user ID is fine. So it will go, this action will go to the Firebase and get the data for that user ID, and I will save that also in the state. So what I will do, I will create a URL like this. Here I need to call this payload as a promise. So in this function, I will call the promise, and then I will delete all whatever it is. I will put only the necessary information. So I'm going to the Firebase with the users. In the users, let's see what is the path. So we have users, inside user we have user ID. So we have the users and we have user ID. User ID will be nothing but this to user ID. And then it will go to the Firebase once value and then snapshot. And snapshot will be there because otherwise the user will not have detail. And if it does not exist, we will do something later on. Right now we will have, but some extreme cases may not have. By chance we have deleted it, so we may go here, but we will not deal with that now. Do something. I will set to do list. Maybe give some error. User does not exist it. And then what I will do, I will see what is value in the snapshot. So let's see what value we are getting in the snapshot. And here instead of chat to user ID, I will say chat to user ID underscore details. Okay, let's try to see whether we are getting this properly. So we will also call this function in the chat. So we'll create another function here, call to user ID details. And I'll pass the UID, and here we will dispatch to user ID details with the UID. And since we are calling to user ID here, we need to put it in the top also. We need to call that function also in the action. We will be calling this dispatch, and we will be getting the details of that user. And details will be displayed here. We haven't put anything in the reducer yet, but first I will test this condition. If the console.log is coming correctly, then I will put it in the reducer. So if I go to my page, I refresh it. So let's see if I am getting something from the. Okay, I need to call this function also. I need to call this function also, call this user details ID, which I will do in the component did mount. We'll say this dot props dot call to user ID details. In the bracket, I will say to user ID. So this part was to only update the user ID in our state, and this part is to go to the Firebase and get the details and put it in the state. So we call this two functions. Since these are the two functions, we will put in the common function. Maybe I can say get to user ID details. Since these are the two functions, so it's better we should put it in some function so that we can call this one. And here I will pass this to user ID here, so that we can call this single function for the 2 lines of the code. I will use this in some time. First, let me see if this is working fine or not. Okay, so now we are getting this user details these are the details of the user with whom I am chatting with. So I'm getting this correctly. So now instead of putting in the one function, instead of putting here, I will be using this one. So here I will delete it, and I will call this one, this dot user ID, and now again I will test it. So I'm getting the user details correctly. So since I'm getting user details correctly, I will put it in the reducer. But before I put it in the reducer, you try to first change this line in the action, in the top line. Okay. Second, put these, change these two functions, create this function and put change the component date mount. Okay. Now create one more function here in the map dispatch to props. Make sure you change this ampersand greater than sign to proper greater than sign, because this part is sometimes not rendering in the chat. Now, one second. Now what we will do, now create the action which I created here. In the action, create this action. Okay, so now I don't need this console.log because it's working fine, so I don't need it. I'll delete this console.log. I will take this type and I'll put it in the reducer. So I'll create another case statement in the my reducer that will be chat user ID to details, and I'll say state equal to dot state comma. So I will create one more parameter here. Maybe I'll say to user ID details to null. Initially it will be null, and here I will update to user ID details with action dot payload. Just add this to user ID details in the reducer, and then add this case statement which will update the variable. Okay, so now we will test this condition that once we load the page, whether this reducer is updated with the proper details or not. So let's go and refresh the page. And I will open the reducer, and to user ID details is null. Let's open the next state. So I'm getting two user ID details null. So let's figure out why it is null. It should have something in it. So I'm saying two user ID details equal to action dot payload. That is, this is correct. Here I'm getting this one, and I'm getting snapshot dot wall, which is coming correctly. Let's try to do console dot log here. Action is action. Let's see why we are not getting action. So in the action, we are getting payload correctly. Okay, but we need to use this fulfilled because it is coming as a promise. So in the reducer, we need to change it to fulfilled. As I already explained, whenever we have something coming from the promise, we get it with the fulfilled. So just change this to fulfilled and then everything will work fine. So in the reducer, change it to chat to user ID details fulfilled. Now I'll test it, the condition whether I'm getting the user details or not. If I go here, so I'm getting two user ID details here with all the information of that user ID. So what I will do, I'm getting it properly here in the two user ID details of the my reducer. So my whole aim was to update this name with the user ID I am chatting with. So what I will do now, I get this one in the chat. I get the details in this variable, my reducer variable. So where I am putting this chat one, chatting with user A, here I will replace with this dot props dot my reducer dot to user ID details. I will get it from here. One more change I will do initially when I don't have to user ID detail, instead of null, I will make it as object. So make this as object, not null only, because sometimes initially we don't have the data. So null will give error, but object will not give error. So make this as object. And here in the chat, my reducer dot to user ID details dot, I want a name. What is the name? It's a display name. I'll say display name. Now if I go here, so I am chatting with Ambi Auja. Right now it is coming from the database. So the whole thing which we did now, so many things, was to get this information with whom I am chatting with. Right? So with whom I am chatting with, I put it here in the top because this is with whom I am chatting with, and that's what I am looking for here. Is that clear? So whole thing which we did now was to get this information.
Yes.
Now let's discuss how our structure will be in the Firebase before we close today. So this information is done. Let me commit it, and then because this part is done, now we will only discuss what we are trying to do. how the structure will be in our database. That structure which I will discuss now, it may change in few days if we feel that it is not appropriate or it's not working properly. Right now, I'm just thinking what it should be. But when we build it, I may feel I need to change it, then we will change it. But right now, let's discuss how it should be. So in the Firebase, let's take the Firebase. We have this food donation. We have data, we have users. So let's create one more level of the tree that will be the chat. So I will write down my structure, what will be the chat. So I will be creating the tree called as chat. So in the chat, I will be creating messages because there will be messages going forward from one person to another person. Okay, so in the messages, it's a record number one. So record number one will be, let's say, message date, right? It will be message date. Or in the messages, I will say, user ID. So for example, my user ID is, let's say, 1. So I will put 1. Then I will say to user ID. So even let's go to messages and I will be having user ID 1 and whom I'm chatting with is a two user ID, user ID 2, user ID. Let's say it's a 2, so I will put 2. I will not put 2 user ID. I will put 2 because the ID is 2. Here I will not put user ID. I will put 1 because my user ID is 1. This is a messages is the main folder. So inside chat we will be having messages. Inside messages we will be having 1 only. This user ID will not come. It will be only 1. I just put user ID to let you know that this is user ID. And with whom I'm chatting with, this is a 2 user ID. So when I'm chatting with this user ID, I will go this path. And here I will put message 1, message 2, message 3. Like this, we will be having different messages. I will also copy into another structure that will be 2. Here will be another user ID. So it will be 2 and 2 user ID will be 1. Since I am putting message in the 1 and 2, I will copy the message in the 2 and 1 because if I delete from here, it should not be deleted from other person's message list. So since I am chatting with the 2, that means 2 is chatting with me, so he should also have the same messages in his queue. So instead of 1 2, I will also copy it into 2 1. And this all 3 messages will be copied here. So tomorrow if I am deleting these 2, but it will not be deleted from the other person's queue because he should be able to see that one. Now let's say I will ask one question. If 4 user is chatting, number 4 user is chatting with number 5 user, and it will be M1, M2, M3. That means what should I create again? One more copy of what? I should be creating copy of what?
5-4.
5-4. Because the reason will be because since I am 4 is chatting with the 5, that means 5 is chatting with the 4 also. So he should also see all the messages which he is seeing. So tomorrow, if this person is deleting these 2, this will not get deleted. Now, what should be inside the message? Let's define the things which we will put in the message. One will be the created message date, on which date we send the message. Second will be Maybe I'll say from display name. I'll just who is chatting with from. So second will be to display name. Okay, and then message. What message we are talking about? What we are chatting with. I will be maybe I can put uh, let's think of it. One, two. Right now I'm putting it here. Otherwise, I was thinking this display name I can put it somewhere else where I can get it. But right now, let's put it here, and then we will optimize it to put it some common place, because right now this whole thing, these two things will be repeated for here also. But it's okay for now. At least we test it, and then we will remove this part, and maybe we will put in some common location. So right now, for working conditions, to make it work, let's put it here, and then we can think of to optimize it more appropriately. I may also put from image to image, and this is the message, and I will also put maybe kind of read whether I read it or not. So it's a true or false. So if I read this message, that means I will change this read to true. Otherwise, initially it will be read false. That means it is not read. So right now I will follow this whole structure in all the messages, and later on I may change this four fields and put it in some common place. But that needs extra work on our side to code it, and I don't want to code that much work now in the first phase. Maybe after the first phase, in the phase two, we will make it in the common place. If I put now, I have to write extra code in the code, and it will take a lot of time to work. But this is the simplest way to at least get going. So this is my structure for the chat, and we are done with first part of the chat. That is, we are able to display the user with whom I'm chatting. So for example, if I'm chatting with another user, sorry, say, so for example, let's try to change this one. Okay, so let's try to. How come your information is here, Tony? Maybe you have taken my Firebase keys. Maybe that's the reason you might have getting it here.
Yeah, I think one time I copied over and then ran it before I changed it.
Okay, so it's okay. I will get your information, but I was just thinking why. So, for example, if I'm chatting with Tony, I will put his ID here. Then I should see his name. So I'm chatting with Tony. So we finish this part of Tony's image. Tomorrow we will do this messaging. That means if I type something, send message, so it will save the information that who is chatting with whom, and I will be able to display it here. So after I display this part, next part will be all the users with whom I am chatting will be displayed here. And then here, okay, so this three part will be main part, and then I will do small things. I will let you know. So once these three things are done, our main chat application is done. So which one is the one? This one, submission, displaying of the messages, and displaying of the users. So these three things we have to take care of. And then this base application will be done. And on top of it, we will try to improve small things, whichever we can do. So let's stop the recording.